everybody, Anna Sabramowitz here, and today I'm going to talk to you about how you can use your scenarios to actually measure some return on investment and improve the training that you're delivering. And I'm also going to give you an awesome story about how not to use certain strategies, especially when it comes to satisfaction surveys, because a lot of people are messing this up, and I just want to end this once and for all, okay? Eradicate this kind of question on your satisfaction surveys. I'm seeing them everywhere and I want them gone, all right? So before we proceed, I just want to make sure that I've got everything live. If you are joining me, go for it, say hello. Oh, I see Mo's here. Hi, Mo. And I'm just going to make sure I bring it up. Cool. All right. So you better say hi if you're enjoying this content, and it also helps the algorithm put it up to the top so that more people get to see it. All right, cool. So let's get started today, okay? So the first thing that I wanted to show you, and I know it's kind of a weird angle here with my whiteboard, but I seriously love being in front of the whiteboard. So let me tell you a story. So one of my good friends used to work at a dealership, a car dealership. And I don't know if you've ever had service done at a dealership. What happens is, depending on the kind of dealership and if they're branded and things like that, what happens is they get to, at the end of that, you've probably been prompted to do a survey. In fact, what happens is, if they're a pro dealership and they care about their results, what they'll do is they'll actually, right beside you, if you guys have had this experience, let me know in the comments. Hi, David. Hi, Manuchar. Hope I'm saying that right. So what they'll do is they'll be like, hey, listen, what kind of experience did you have? And then basically they'll go through line by line on the experience. And if something isn't a 10 out of 10, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, well, what can I do to fix that? Or if you say something like, okay, well, how is the speediness of the service today? And you're like, good. And they're like, okay, what could have made it better? And you're like, well, actually, it was really good. So you're like, oh, so that's an excellent then, right? That's how it works at a dealership. Now, this is what's crazy. Now, think about this. This is going from not satisfied to very satisfied, or, something like that. How satisfied were you, right? It's a scale. We call this a Likert scale, right? Now, I'm not going to name it here because that's not what's important. What's important is to consider the fact that you're probably using a Likert scale at the end of your training, right? And you're asking your learner at the end of that training to make a decision on this scale to rate, what it is, but you don't have anybody holding their hand saying, okay, if it was okay, what can we do to improve that, right? You're not asking any of those questions, but also you're not guiding, because one of the things is I found, and this is so terrible about these Likert scale kinds of questions, is that the difference between good and excellent is subjective. The difference between not pleased and pleased is completely subjective. It's so subjective that the kind of lunch that person had, the kind of day that person had, will impact the survey results. This is why I think we should abolish this from all of our survey training results reviews. It's BS. It doesn't help anybody. Because let's say you get all excellence. And I remember, when I used to train, we used to hand out the smile sheets, and I'd get all excellence. And then people would hit the floor and they'd be making mistakes. And I was thinking, well, I got all excellence, so what can I improve? And when you're actually asking people to improve, like, where could I improve this? That they don't think about that. That's not their job. They're not learning designers. So they're going to give you stuff that's not necessarily going to be handy, or you're going to get that, I usually got this. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You do the survey, you hand it out, right? Or you send it digitally. And then what happens is you get the one person who just absolutely loved it, and they write you a big, big paragraph about how it was awesome. And then you get the other person who, has a lot of opinions about the other way, and they write you a whole bunch of stuff. And so what ends up happening is you get to see this skewed perception of like one person's feedback and everybody else was like, it was good, or the cookies were good or whatever, right? So this is a terrible way to measure anything. And as I just shared with you about the example about the dealership, they have to coach people because most people will say good or they'll say excellent, but you have no idea why. So they actually have to do a one-on-one, facilitation with you, and you don't have that kind of time. And like I said, you don't have somebody to ask, it was excellent, but why? And the other thing, this kind of survey doesn't tell you what you need to improve. It gives you a blank statement, right? But it doesn't tell you where you can be better. And that's why I want to tell you about how to use your actual scenarios and the questions that you're posing out there to use them to improve the one thing that you can, which is the training, right? Because a lot of people are talking about ROI and all this stuff, right? Return on investment. That's cool. But I, as a person who's launched lots and lots and lots of e-learning and lots of other stuff that I shouldn't have been launching, one of the things I know is that when I send my little baby out there into the world of the ecosystem of all the little pieces that are out there that are trying to get a person from A to Z in a business environment, that's just one tiny piece, and it has nothing to do with how they are feeling that day, if their boss is supportive, if they know how to use the intranet, if they have access, if they have a mentor. There is so many pieces out there once it gets launched that a lot of us have zero control over, right? So what we have to start getting better at is maybe benchmarking and being more realistic about what we can actually control and what kind of feedback are we gathering that will actually help us improve within our tiny circle of competence and control. Are you getting this? Hope this is kind of helpful so much. Is this something you want to hear about? Let me know in the comments as I'm talking about this if this is something that it resonates with you. Because I got to tell you, when I share these strategies with you, these are mine, right? These are things that I've banged my head against and been frustrated with for years. Because one of the things that is so discouraging is when you launch something and you have no idea how well, something did, how much impact it had. But if you can actually use your piece as a benchmark for something, that is where you can actually have a little bit of leverage. Also, if you want to get good at interactive storytelling, which is what I help my students learn and launch, then go to elearningsecrets.com and you'll actually find a case study there. And then, you get to learn more about the things that I do, my story, and maybe a framework that you could use to design one of these experiences for yourself. So let's get back to how to use this as a benchmarking tool. Okay, so one of my students, we just actually had a live walkthrough session during our live Q&A sessions that we run every week. And what she did is she works at an organization where they have 3 different kinds of software. And so it's very technical, but also at the same time, she found that because these people, this is in a call center setting, what they're doing is they're actually taking all of this information, combining it, in their minds as far as trying to find the right answer for a customer, but also at the same time, when they find out information that's not necessarily nice or conducive to a good, happy customer, they kind of waffle, right? Or they doubt themselves, or they jump to conclusions too quickly and they don't look things up. And so she thought that the interactive story would be a great place to mesh the idea of talking to a customer, right, through the lens of a certain kind of person, so that you're not attacking yourself here as far as making any kind of errors, right? So you're learning through this character's personal doubts and confidence issues, and also the pressure, the social pressure that's happening when you just start. All those things are implemented into this interactive story. And it's just a fabulous looking experience. And one of the things that she wanted to do as well is
reinforce certain kinds of really cool behaviors as far as, when to place people on hold, what kind of notes to take. So it's a jam-packed, immersive experience. Absolutely awesome. Now, when we were doing our review, we bring on basically all the members in our community can jump on. We talk about projects live, ask questions, lessons learned, right? And to be honest, I also learn a lot because I have a ton of strategies, but they've worked for me. And now when my students are applying it in their context, they always have like their own experience, and sometimes it's different, right? So I learn a lot from their experiences too. But somebody asked the ROI question, right? They said, hey, so how are you measuring the ROI of this experience? And so this is what's really cool. So this particular experience is used for onboarding, right? So onboarding, it's not like people have a choice to take it. They have to, right? And what she's using this experience as is that they have the onboarding period. She's using it at the end to kind of bring it all together, right? As far as what is it going to be, how do you, before you hit the floor, how are all these things going to be kind of meshed together? And basically, if you don't pass this, then you get to go again and try it, because it really is a culmination of all the training that's been happening, right? So what's happening is she's using kind of like it as an end result piece, right? So the data that she got though for the kind of decisions that this rep and the kinds of calls that this rep is needing to make, she got from the QA team, right? So she got this data from the QA team as far as the most common rookie mistakes made by new staff on the job, right? Pretty cool. So she's using real data. Now, let me tell you, when those guys send you data, it's a lot of data. So she needed some help, obviously, to sort through what was the most relevant. So this is what I think is really cool. So she used those to craft her 6 interactive scenarios, right, in her story. So she uses these 6. I don't know if that's 6, but let's pretend it's 6, all right? So one of the things that's happening now is when she sourced that data, right, the Q&A department told her, right now, these are the 6, right? So she has a benchmark. And if this is showing up backwards for you, don't worry. Just bear with me, pay attention, because I think this is kind of really useful if this is all you have to work with, right? You don't have data from like 6 months from now on performance. Let's be real. The only thing you can control is the quality of the training you put out, the context, and the way that you gather that data is very important, because if you can actually test to see how you can improve your training, you win. You win, all right? Because sometimes you're stuck. You have no choices. You have no options. So work on the things you have control over, which is the quality of the training you're putting out. So the first time she asks for this data, let's say that was 3 months ago, she gets this data about what are the questions or what are the places where people are making the most mistakes. So she's got a benchmark, right? Now, when people go through the scenario based interactive story, what happens is she can now gather data from, because it's a SCORM compliant piece, right? She can see where people are making mistakes, right? So she'll see that on the first try, they always get this question wrong. Let's say 3 of them, they really get wrong, right? On the first try. This is a mastery model, so they can't actually go on to the, to train with, do their work on the call floor until they actually pass this training and get these all right. But the first and second runs, she can actually really figure out where they're messing up. Now, this is what's awesome. The fact that they're messing up here is and if she's crafted these really well as far as making the alternate options in the scenario really relevant and contextual and based on the assumptions that new people make when they jump on, then that really tells her as well. What does that tell her? That there's gaps in this training right here. She doesn't even need a survey from them about satisfaction to figure out where in a contextual situation they would mess up and what needs to be beefed up over here to actually make this a better experience, to make this a more intuitive experience when they get there. Because as far as I'm concerned, if the training is so robust and goes through so many contextual situations and scenarios, then my optimal outcome would be that they go through this training, right, and get 100% on the first try, because they've practiced it over and over and everything in the training has been so contextual. So really what I'm working towards is, one, now I hope you're thinking about how can I now use this data to validate whether what I've produced has been helpful. So remember, we set a benchmark about how many of these mistakes are happening on the floor. Now, if we take this training just even after people are running the first run, right? And we can check the benchmark with the Q&A team again. Has there been a difference? Second thing that you need to do, if people are getting these 3 questions wrong all the time, what are we doing in the training that's not reinforcing it? Okay, let's do that. Now let's check against the QA team's bench numbers. See if there's a difference between that benchmark that we set 6 months ago, and now as we've had a chance to improve the training, is there now a difference, right? Is there now a difference? So you can do multiple check-ins and multiple strategies to improve this, right? While you're checking the benchmarks. Now, you may never, ever, ever, get data again. Like it could be even things like, sometimes you're an independent consultant, right? You're coming in, you're delivering a package, but you want to know, really, if you're good, you want to know, hey, how can I improve this, right? Because you know that you could have done it better if you had some data. So after it gets launched in the LMS, all you have to do is ask the client, hey, can I get some data from the LMS as far as which ones people are choosing, so that I can figure out where we're going wrong or where we need to reinforce or where we need to actually provide more practice scenarios. That could be an option. So that way you're using real data. It's not subjective. You're actually abolishing this idea of having to explain to somebody how what the difference is between satisfied and highly satisfied, right? So you're really, and also this is the other thing that is, like, for me, for this student, is such a lifesaver. You're being really candid with yourself about what you actually have impact over, right? Because I get it. Like, it's completely BS and idealistic to be like, oh, I'm going to launch this thing and in 6 months I'm going to see an ROI. If you do, right, that's great, but there's no way that single event would have been like the only thing that made impact. In fact, one of the things that we always talk about in our community of interactive storytellers is that a lot of times the things that we build, especially if it's an interactive story that grips you to action, it's a catalyst for other things. There is no single thing that will, make a difference. It's actually like a network effect, right? Where one thing sparks an idea, and then all these other things have to be in place to actually make that work, and then the momentum happens, and there's a snowball effect, right? So these are the things that are happening. If this is something that if you're just excited about interactive stories, and this is something that you want to get really dig into to find out if this is the next level that you want to take yourself to, I'll put my link underneath the video so that you guys can reach out to me and we can talk. Now, it's funny because I think a lot of us are already, when I talk about next level, a lot of people think technical, like they'll think, oh, I'm already, a master at articulate storyline, or I'm already just, I'm a whiz at visual communication, and that's cool, right? But to actually craft pieces that are emotionally engaging and connect people in the right way, that's a different kind of beast. And that's what I'm talking about when it says next level, right? Because you may already be doing things that are next level, but they're so mundane, you're basically in a hamster wheel of content creation. And if you're tired of that and you want to see if there's anything more, then that's definitely what I can help you with. All right. So I hope you have a fabulous rest of the day. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please press that like button, because then it helps the algorithm put it where it actually needs to be, which is in the top of the feed over the kitty cat videos. And if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. I always check your comments and I always reply, or I make a video about them. Otherwise, I will see you here again tomorrow around the same time. So yeah, hope to see you then, or hope to see you during a strategy session. All right, take care, friends. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.